Hi, everyone. Welcome to a special CFG webinar created exclusively for our CFG Leaders Group, the top marketers in B2B financial services, as you know. We have a few rules of engagement that we just like to go over before we get started on our webinars. To prevent any background noise, we've muted all of your phones, but that doesn't mean you can't ask questions. If you have one that you're dying to ask, you will see a Q&A button at the top of your page or the public chat box, but we will try to leave all the questions until the end. The slides from today's webcast along with the recording will be sent to you this week, probably via email or link to our Dropbox. Our recording, we will include our guest contact information for you along with their Twitter handles and any contact information. Please feel free to share anything that you learn during this webinar with your colleagues internally to help you build a credible case for measurement in your marketing organization. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Pat.
Hi, everyone. This is Pat Scanlon. And feel free to tweet while we are on this webinar today. Both Laura and Jay are active on Twitter, so let's promote this. So today we're getting together to talk about taking marketing alignment and accountability to the next level. Today's session follows our in-person leaders discussion last September in Chicago. At that meeting, we talked about the state of marketing measurement and wholesale banking, what we're reporting and what we're watching. We tied marketing metrics to business goals and outcomes using the Serious Decisions Best-in-Class Demand Waterfall model. And finally, we examined several models of dashboards. The recap of that was sent to you some time ago in the form of our Leaders Insights. So, and I think I attached to the invitation at one point too. So you can catch up on the background of that if you were not there. But it was decided at that meeting that the next step in this discussion of marketing performance measurement would be to showcase a company that was successful in implementing a measurement system. So today I'd like to introduce you to two professionals who have worked hard to put together a system of measurement that aligns marketing with the rest of the organization and holds marketing accountable for its performance. What you will hear shortly is a best-in-class case of high-performing marketing organization based on the principles designed by a well-known marketing consultant. And speaking of that consultant, I introduce you to Laura Patterson. Many of you know Laura, at least from her work or from our previous CFG meetings. Laura is a proven marketing practitioner, a respected consultant, and a dynamic speaker, as we know. She is known for her practical, no-nonsense approach to proving and improving the value of B2B marketing. Inventive and engaging, Laura gets to the heart of the matter to provide actionable recommendations and solutions. Because her 20-year career began in sales and now spans customer relationship management and marketing, her recommendations are always cross-functional friendly. An early pioneer on the science side of marketing, Laura is recognized as one of the leading authorities in marketing measurement and performance, marketing operations, and marketing data and analytics. A strategic marketer, data and metrics master, she has helped over 100 companies in a variety of industries fulfill their marketing potential and achieve competitive advantage. With Laura today is Jay Varellin. Jay is the Director of Marketing Operational Excellence, or Awesomeness, at KENNAMETAL, Inc. Jay is a hands-on B2B marketing leader that enjoys getting in the trenches and doing whatever it takes to take the commercial machine sustainably effective, to make it effective. Jay has developed an end-to-end commercial mindset through various global and regional leadership roles over the last 12 years, including marketing operations, operational excellence leadership, global product management, regional B2B product team leadership, and B2B sales development. In collaboration with KENNAMETAL's CMO, John Jacko, and the extended marketing leadership team, they ensure their machine has the balanced approach to people, process, and technology, while delivering on their mission to find, attract, win, and retain customers for sustainable, profitable growth. So I introduce you to both of these today. We promise you this is going to be a great webinar. Thank you all for taking time out of your schedules to be with CFG today. And now I'd like to turn the webcast over to Laura, who will introduce the concepts for today's session and Jay. And as Alex mentioned earlier, there will be time for Q&A following their presentation. So please don't be shy, and we hope you enjoy today's session. Laura?
Thank you, Pat and Alex, and all of you for joining us today. We're really excited about being here and sharing this story and offering some suggestions. We do have a number of things we want to cover, and feel free to, as Pat mentioned, to tweet about some of this if you'd like, so you guys can hold on to it going forward. So we really want to talk about accountability and alignment, and I know I've had a chance to meet some of you and be present at one of your sessions a number of years ago, and many of you are familiar with the annual marketing performance benchmarking study. So I'm going to share some of the results and how that's been playing out for the best-in-class marketers and what the implications are and what you can do and borrow from them and how that ties into what KENNAMETAL is doing. We're going to talk about marketing ops a little bit more today than we have in the past and the important role it plays and how KENNAMETAL and Jay are making marketing ops work in their organization and moving their organization closer and closer to being a center of excellence within the company. And then Jay will be spending more time on the processes that they have incorporated, and then I'll come back and spend some time on what you can do to get started depending on where you are in your journey and some parting thoughts, and then per Pat and Alex's initial remarks, we will have time for Q&A. That's our ultimate game plan anyway, but if we run out of time at the end, don't be shy. Reach out to us. We'd be happy to help. So with that, what I'd like to do is just for a moment, I know you've all had a really busy day, and we really appreciate you stepping in here late in the day to talk with us. So let's try to just imagine for a moment the kind of thing we're trying to create. So imagine that you could actually show the relationship between the marketing activities and investments that you're making and business results. This is one of the key things that the KENNAMETAL team was really focused on trying to accomplish. Second, to have marketing perceived as an investment rather than an expense. And thirdly, that marketing is aligned both to the business and to the sales organization. So we know that there are a few marketers who do this really well. And for those of you who have been participants in the annual benchmarking study, you're familiar with the question we ask of the C-suite, how they would grade marketing on their ability to prove their value, contribution, and impact. And so what you can see here is the scoring that has since 2007. Very excited to begin to see what the results are going to look like from this year's study, which will conclude at the end of the month. So if you haven't participated yet, you're welcome to do so, and we'll tell you more about that in a moment. But what you see here is that the A's have kind of been hovering, maybe slightly down, in 1 in 5, 1 in 4 marketing organizations. And what you can see is that the B's took a pretty big nosedive back at around 2011, 2012, and have been steadily trying to climb out of that and have had some challenges. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And the C's took a nice little upward swing as those B's came down, and so did the D's. And you can see the D's have been on the rise, on the increase. So we can spend more time talking about this, but the key thing here is that as a result of this work, we really now have the ability to identify 3 primary marketing excellence and performance personas. The A's, the middle of the pack, the laggards, the A's being the business value creators, the middle of the pack, the B's being the sales enablers, and the laggards, the C's and D's being the campaign producers. And what we know is that these are 3 very different and distinct personas. And the A's, these business value creators, are all about understanding the business and moving business needles. And the sales enablers, the B's, are all about connecting and being in service to the sales organization. So their whole world is all around serious decisions, right? And the campaign producers, the laggards, are really more like service providers. They operate like internal agencies, tracking mostly activity and output. So, and we find that these personas can even exist within an organization. depending on how large an organization is. And it doesn't really matter what industry they're in, the size of the company, the geography or geographic location. It's pretty consistent. So there's nothing different about the industry, size, or location. So what is one of the key drivers that we're looking at here? So if you look at the last 3 years, what you can see is that the value creators are perceived at having much more impact on the business than their peers. And this is a key indication of success, is being able to have impact on the business. Whoops. And what makes them different has to do with alignment. So we're going to talk about that. We know that these A's leverage 6 key competencies, of which alignment and accountability are 2. We'll talk about the others shortly. And that we know that alignment and accountability are statistically significant after doing this research for the last 15 years. So the A's are getting better at alignment, and the campaign producers and sales enablers are not making very much headway. It's the alignment of marketing to the business that allows them to reach their accountability, to be able to select the right kinds of metrics. And as you can see here, even though value creators are still struggling with some metric selection, they are superior at selecting metrics that measure value compared to their colleagues. And what is it that makes them different comes down to a couple of key things, one of which is business acumen. So these A's really see themselves as members of the business team first and foremost. So they're business people before they're marketers. So for them, it's about speaking the language of the business, being immersed in the business, being able to be relevant to the business, and we'll talk a little bit more about how they do that, and that everything that they're really doing reflects that they are knowledgeable about the business. And so you can see that the A's are beginning to try to push that up a little bit more, and that the B's and C's and D's, the sales enablers and the campaign producers, are sliding backwards in their ability to demonstrate business acumen. So the reason that these folks are also really good at a third A, which is analytics, data and analytics, has to do with their business acumen. Because of the fact that they are so knowledgeable and immersed in their business, they're able to make and use data more effectively. And that their data is actually critical to making decisions. So again, if you take a look at what's happening, the value creators are making really good progress at being able to effectively use data to make decisions, whereas even though the C's and the campaign producers and the B's, the sales enablers, are making some headway, they're not making as much headway, and even though there's more and more data and more tools available to all marketers today. The fact that they are able to be more effective at using their data has also made these marketers more relevant, because their data is being used by larger and more members of the leadership team and of the organization. So the C-suite, business units, a line of business, general managers, VPs over business units, and the sales organization are more likely to tap and use data provided by the value creators than they are to use the data provided by the campaign producers and sales enablers. And hopefully you're beginning to ask the question, why is that? So in a moment, we'll talk a little bit more about why that is. It's really a different kind of data. It's a different kind of analytics. The data and analytics of the value creators is all around the customer, far greater insight into customers. So many of you are probably familiar with Forrester's claim that we have entered the age of the customer. I imagine you've been reading as much as I've been reading about from Forrester and McKinsey and many of the other folks that are out there writing about being customer obsessed and customer centricity and customer focused. But the A's are really embracing this in such a way that they are able to understand the customer's journey, their buying process, their propensity to purchase. They know which customers are at risk, and they are really honing in on developing personas and the appropriate value propositions, key messages, products and services that all are applicable, the content and the channels that are preferred by personas along that journey. Whereas the campaign producers and the sales enablers are only made a little bit of progress in this area. So this allows, because of their data, because of their alignment, because they're choosing the right metrics, the value creators are able to contribute to business goals and the achievement of those goals in a superior way. And not only does the leadership team feel that way and grade them that way, you can see it in the business results. So the kinds of business results that the C-suite is often looking at, things like revenue growth, pipeline contribution, win rate, share of wallet, customer retention, acquisition of net new customers, in every single one of those, value creators excel compared to their colleagues. Now, they still have work to do. You can see they're in the, some of them are still only at 50 to 80%, depending on where they are, but still, they're far superior at doing it than their colleagues. So now that I've laid this foundation for what some of the best-in-class marketers are doing and some of the data that supports the kinds of efforts that they are investing in, I'd like to turn it over to Jay Farrellin, the Director of Marketing Operational Excellence at KENNAMETAL. He'll tell you a little bit about KENNAMETAL, why they started this journey, how they got started, and some of the key milestones and successes they've been able to achieve. Jay?
Thanks, Laura. I really appreciate that. And thank you, everyone, for your time. I know that in the afternoon, sometimes that's when people are effective. Sometimes it's not so much. So anyone who is multitasking, please stop and watch. But I think the important part that we want to talk about is, more over and above who's KENNAMETAL in our journey. There's a lot of this that goes across industries, whether it's business to business, business to consumer, different types of industrial versus other types of markets as well. There's a lot of things that are consistent, and one of them is, in order to get to that value creation, it's a journey. And so we're going to share a little bit about that and how we got started and also how far we have to go. So KENNAMETAL overall, I realize that there's a lot of people from everybody's from the banking community, so I should probably have a safe harbor statement in here, but I just want to mention that the things that we work on and the things that we are looking at here from the marketing perspective are not intended to influence any investment decisions, but they are to share with our colleagues across different industries on some of the practices we have. So KENNAMETAL, we're not huge, but we're not tiny, about $2 billion in annual revenue, depending on when the measure start and stop is. Our mission is to deliver productivity to customers in demanding environments. That's across a variety of end markets. So primarily we have general engineering, transportation, earthworks, energy and process, and aerospace. And we do things like producing the tools and metalworking pieces where they'll remove metal, or they'll mine and do road construction. Usually subtractive manufacturing is pretty much where we are. Across all geographies, a lot of complicated solutions. It's not something that you typically can automate quickly. You really have a high technical add and value add to our customers, and we look at solutions from all advanced materials, sciences, and processes that help us win the business. So we add value across the entire value proposition and the entire process of our customers, and that's really important and part of what we link into. So that's just a little bit about us. I work for John Jacko, the CMO, and one thing I'll mention is that being the Director of Marketing Operations or Operational Excellence is an important role in leadership development. So for those of you who are looking at this role, it is becoming more and more defined and refined and common within lots of different industries. It started mostly in B2C, but it is coming across our industries. And it's really, as far as I'm concerned and as far as the relationship between myself and my CMO go, this is more of a CMO in training. I'm understanding how marketing works, and I'm there to add value to the CMO and the marketing leadership staff overall. So that's something that is a little pitch for the role. So KENNAMETAL marketing, we use this, it's a little bit blurry I think here, but we use this to describe what it is we do. And at the end of the day, we find, attract, win, and retain customers. That's what we do as a business, not only marketing but sales. And we like to think about this as a commercial ecosystem. So we kind of go from company strategy all the way through to product development, integrating with engineering and supply chain logistics to deliver our products and solutions to the customers. It always starts from the customer and works back, but that connection goes all the way from strategy all the way through it. It's important to understand how the interactions work, and it's also important to understand, I'm going to do my cursor here so you can see, it's important to understand how the islands interact and how the paths or the connective tissue is creating any value across that whole chain. So we're apprentices. I think the speaker notes are showing a little bit there as well. We think we're maybe in inning 3 to 4 of a 9-inning game, to use a baseball analogy. There's a long way to go. There's a lot of things we've done, but we're moving decidedly forward. So why do we even bother with the journey? Here's a picture of before we started. You know, we had so many metrics, so few KPIs. Lots of things and activities are very easy to measure, but to have key performance indicators aligned to the outcomes is something very, very different. Process. We had a lot of processes, and in a lot of cases, we had a lack of processes. We discovered, working with Laura and our partners to get our baseline, that we had over 200 marketing processes. Not all were documented, but some were documented in ad hoc fashions and certainly not consistent. So the big risk of that uncontrolled variation, everyone hates that standardization word, but uncontrolled variation isn't healthy in any process. So we want to make sure that we're effective and efficient with the use. And at the end of the day, it's very difficult to have credibility at the table in the C-suite for my CMO or for any of the leaders if there isn't a framework for discussion and a way to show how we use that alignment. Our culture was typically around firefighting, and at best it was with a leaky bucket. So it's kind of like a bucket brigade, and as soon as the water got close to the fire, you realized that it had been leaking the whole way. It's very hard to do. A lot of activity happening, but at the end of the day, it's a lot more sense if you focus on fire prevention. Our budget being too high, I put a little star there. You know, at the end, it's very interesting in marketing, where if you're seen as a value creator, you set a budget, you know how to align that investment and how it's creating outcomes. So you have a lot more alignment there. But a good indicator that something is not right is that anytime there's an issue or something happening, they come to marketing and say, okay, it's just time to reduce your budget, and then you reduce some more and reduce some more. So that's kind of where we were at and why we started this journey. The way we started it was we just decided. We took a decision and said, okay, look, we need to understand who we need. We need some partners. We're not going to be able to do it ourselves. We engaged Laura to help us get started and really roadmap this journey, and really taking the advice to start with outcomes that matter. You see the little formula, Y is a function of your X's, is really just anybody that's familiar with Six Sigma or even from your grade school learnings, you know, the scientific method. An outcome is just simply a function of the inputs, and if you prioritize the right inputs and influence them, you'll have a really easy time influencing the outcomes. But understanding that data chain is the first step. And the ultimate goal is really around sustainable excellence. It's great if you can do something excellent or do something awesome. I'm very happy with my team when they do that, but it's more impressive if it can be repeated and it's scalable and sustainable. So it's not about one person's heroic effort. It's about a sustainable system that can continue on. So our future state, we really looked at this as marketing to be considered as a center of excellence. We needed to look at several areas. We looked at our team and how they operate with tools and measures, so equipping them with the right tools or tool sets to look at data and manage in a way that is a little more common in manufacturing, but we took those practices like Lean and Six Sigma tools, a lot of project management, and how we use those into our processes so that we could equip our team members and show them how to use those tools effectively. Defining end-to-end processes, this is really important because then we can look at the end-to-end process and how things connect. All of our KPIs are aligned, and the CMO is accountable, and we can really look at customer lifecycle development and how we influence that. Our market spend optimized for the business. I won't read all the bullets. You guys can see those ones. But another thing, being a center of excellence, is that you're a recognized leader in your space. So from a B2B perspective, we not only want to benchmark others, we enjoy being benchmarked because everyone learns from these. And when we're able to add value to our peers and be best practice leaders, that's a good sign that we're on a good journey. And the more we share and the more that we listen to our peers as well, the more we can grow together. So that's really important for us as part of being a center of excellence. And of course, last but certainly not least is the people development. We talked about balancing people, process, and technology. The people development is very important. So a great process is interesting, but great people can overcome a lot of technology and process gaps. So with that, I'll pass back over to Laura to talk a little more around Center of Excellence.
Thank you, Jay. And I know we'll be back in just a moment with Jay, and he's going to tell you what the results have been. But I do want to spend some time talking about Centers of Excellence because that's, a passion of VisionEdge Marketing, and for the most part, our customers too, is transforming marketing into a Center of Excellence. And just to remind you, to do that you really need to have a team. We recommend establishing, a marketing leadership council and having someone in the role like Jay that's leading that effort, because when you have a Center of Excellence, you can provide leadership, you can foster the best practices and processes, set up the right methodologies and models. You can facilitate the kinds of research, particularly around customers, and of course enhance the skills of everyone in the marketing organization. Sort of that old notion, rising tides raise all boats, right? So the idea there. At the most fundamental level, a COE is really designed to drive and achieve business results, encourage innovation, and leverage proven techniques and methodologies. We do have some white papers on our website about creating marketing leadership councils, about marketing operations for a Center of Excellence, about marketing technology for a Center of Excellence, about creating analytics centers of excellence. So if those are things that pique your interest, we do have some fairly extensive sort of how-to, not salesy, very educational types of white papers on our website. One caveat, we're having slight technology issues with our website today, so please be patient with us if you run into some challenges with it if you decide to visit it today. So how good a job is marketing doing at exemplifying a Center of Excellence? Well, here again, let's go back to the research, and we can see that the value creators are really putting the effort forward, because I'm going to tell you right now, the work that Jay and team are doing, it's hard work. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes money. And so, and they're doing that, and they still have their regular day jobs sometimes too. I mean, not all companies do it that way, but in Jay's case, that's kind of the way it works, and he'll tell you more about that in a moment. But you can see that nearly half of the value creators are really moving in this direction. This is a key part of their journey. So they're moving beyond the performance measurement to the actual Center of Excellence, and the measures are just part and parcel of that. You can see the campaign producers kind of really trailing way back there at the beginning of the conversation. We know from our work that to do this well and to make the kind of headway that Jay is talking about and that we're seeing with our other customers, you need to have a marketing ops function. I know some of you have marketing ops in your organizations today or building that if you don't have it today. Some of you may have even come from backgrounds where you were marketing ops. So we do know that there is a greater presence of marketing ops among the value creators than among the sales enablers and campaign producers, which is kind of interesting because let's talk about those sales enablers for just a moment, the ones that fell off the cliff. Why did they fall off the cliff? What happened? Why did the C-suite give them such a tough grade or move them into a different category? It had to do with technology. The sales enablers, even more than the campaign producers, try to tell their leadership team that it was a technology issue and that by putting technology in place, the problems would be solved. And so they made considerable investments in technology. And what ended up happening is because they didn't have the processes and the skills in place, they really couldn't deliver on the promise of the technology. And so it's kind of an old saying. I've used this before, and some of you have heard me say this. My father was really into being a handyman. He did a lot of projects, carpentry, electrical, all of that home kind of projects. Maybe some of you had a father like that too. So I love to go to the hardware store with him, and I'll never forget the day when I was quite young, and I got enamored with a power tool when he said to me, the only thing that happens when you buy a power tool is if you can't use the manual tool well, is you can do more damage faster. So I want you to just sort of keep that in mind as all of us are beginning to put more and more technology, particularly marketing technology, in place. So it's not that the value creators have more technology. What they've done is the work to make sure that whatever technology they do put in place, they can use well. Okay, with that, I want to talk about how we navigate the journey at KENNAMETAL. We're going to go back to Jay. He's going to talk a little bit more about the role of marketing ops, since it's so critical, what's changed for them, how they have actually moved their things forward, and what kind of results they've gotten. Jay, back to you.
Okay, so the next little bit is a fair bit of information, and you guys will have some handouts that come from it. But it's important to connect the dots, because as you get to those outcomes and those measures and how you are value creators, it takes all of the work to get there. And as we mentioned, from a marketing operations standpoint, at KENNAMETAL, the way we define that is really like this. I'm the chief of staff to the CMO. So what that means is I facilitate all the marketing staff leader meetings, any offsites that we have for problem solving and prioritization. I also control the marketing budget. So basically that gives a little bit of, not really power or hard power, but influence power to make sure that we are really focused on the right things at the right time. I take care of ensuring end-to-end process connectivity and sustainability. I do the tracking and providing insights on marketing KPIs, which is a considerable task, but it doesn't mean that I do all of the spreadsheets and all the different things. What we do is we make sure that we have, again, end-to-end processes that have specific measures, how do they connect to the outcomes, and who's responsible for what, and what is the process by which we review. We also implement this DMAIC mindset. So that stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, control. And that's really a way of looking at any problem or opportunity. And that's, you have to define the problem and make sure you can measure it in order to analyze and improve it. A lot of people like to jump to the solution, and a lot of times what happens is you'll just do a lot of busy work and you don't get the results you want, or you don't even know if what you did had any impact. It's always focused on efficiency and effectiveness, and yes, there's a lot of the boring work, which is process maps and all this kind of stuff on whiteboards and sticky notes and using Visio quite a lot, but that's part of it, and it's quite fun. We also provide cross-functional leadership on strategic initiatives. So while my full-time job is marketing operational excellence, very often if we have a large, difficult problem that has to go across functions, we'll provide the role of that neutral party that'll be able to really look at it without any bias or influence, other than the fact that we want to solve a problem and use the tools to do it. So it's important to know what keeps your CMO up at night. So any of you in these roles, this is where marketing operations provides a lot of value. It's kind of the go-to person. Now, when we look at marketing's mission, find, attract, win, retain, what's interesting about that is when we started, we all kind of had that in our minds, and it was around getting profitable customers. That's really what we're looking to do. But the means by which we do it and the definitions of those, what was interesting is that it was different across every single person. So if I asked somebody to define find, attract, win, and retain, it wasn't consistent. And in order to make any progress, we want to make sure we've laid a foundation of language. So we took the time to identify, and yes, we even spent a little marketing dollars and created a nifty logo and made some definitions around what does it mean to find, attract, win, and retain, so that we can have that language across ourselves and across our cross-functional team members. Getting to details, because some of you are probably more about details and not flashy stuff. We really took this and broke it down into what does that mean then? What is the work to be done within find, within attract, within win and retain? You can see the elements there. That is a really large study that took place, and we looked at corporate executive boards, serious decisions, all kinds of our peers, and looked at what are all the elements of work to be done across marketing. And it really broke down into these buckets at a high level, which we were able to design a system behind that had owners from end to end, and we really understood what are the inputs and outputs of each of these, and how do they feed each other, how do they tie, and what is the process by which we're doing it. Again, that was a framework and a language so that we could manage and work across, and then ultimately connect to the outcomes that we're looking for. A lot of stuff there, and there's a lot behind it. Of course, lots of spreadsheets and working, but this was a way to explain how we work and how it goes from basically the beginning and assessment all the way through to analyzing and retaining the customers. So again, I mentioned what do we do? We focus on the connective tissues, and the reason we do that is because without that connective tissue and having the ops function or somebody looking at those, you can develop a lot of centers of excellence that are islands. And it's important that it's not just a portion of marketing or a portion of sales. It's really one commercial, one effort, and those things have to connect. So that was really more the point of this. Of course, we like to have we've also presented this in a couple of different forums, and some folks like to have some tweets. So this is a quote from myself. If you want to tweet something out, I'm more than happy to be tagged and help you with that. But one of the most critical roles of marketing ops function is to ensure that balance. We talked about people, process, and technology. That is very, very important. As Laura mentioned, everyone loves the shiny toys, and let's go buy the next automation system or tool or something that's going to go get everything and solve all our problems. And it's very disappointing when you get to the point where you've spent sometimes millions of dollars and the outcome is difficult or sometimes impossible to measure, or it just made things much, much worse. So keeping that balance is crucially important. Another piece that's really important and where we looked and focused was our alignment to sales operations. Again, it wasn't about marketing alone. It was about how do we deliver business results. And marketing doesn't work in a silo or a vacuum. When we look at the connection with sales, we decided to lay out in a very simple way the lead to order process. So how do we go from someone who's a suspected new customer or new revenue opportunity generator, going through all the different processes here of qualifying, becoming a prospect, and scoring, and all the things that you guys would see typically. How does that work from end to end, and where are we? And we executized this, so please don't take offense to that term, but we made it in this one page to show where are we, and this is where we were as of January 2013 on that process. We had a very big gap, and we wanted to have an investment made in a CRM system, Dynamics, which we installed and deployed across our 1,600 users, and we pointed to the reason why. So the reason why was that we had a complete and total disconnect, and we could not connect the dots from suspected new business to order. And without that connection, even generally, we would never be able to prove value in any case. So the next step before we made the investment and went and deployed all that technology in CRM was we went and made some process improvements and got ourselves a gravel road connected to a rope bridge to a superhighway. It wasn't pretty, but what it was connected end to end. And now we were able to show that when we generated leads, we could see how often those became opportunities, when that led to quotes and when that led to orders, and we could connect it across the customer life cycle. This is really how we connected the dots from end to end, aligned with our sales team, and this is how we got the investments to make sure that we were able to layer on technology on top of that process to continue winning and generating value. Another piece of this is how does it all work, right? So this work to be done. We also took the time to work with our sales partners, and we laid out the elements of sales so that together we would have a overall commercial system. And then together we prioritized and said, where are we going to focus? What's going to add the most value? Or where do we have the biggest gaps where we want to develop? Everything always needs work, but without focus, you work on everything and essentially aren't able to deliver anything. So we looked at what are the backbone pieces that we must always have some improvements going on and make sure they're connected. And then we prioritize together. And as a matter of fact, not only with sales and marketing, but with our entire executive team using this framework and language so that we could get to the outcomes that we wanted to deliver. So that gets us here, which is now all of those pieces and all of that language that we were talking about, they have expected outcomes. So from a find perspective, we have specific measures that we can see if we're finding well. Then we have under attract specific measures where we are attracting well, and so on through retention. So this is developed not only, again, with sales and marketing, but including our finance teams and alignment all across, so that when we speak this language and we use these, we're able to connect it to the top outcomes that matter to the enterprise, which is our voice of the employee, net promoter score, our sales growth, our EBIT targets and earnings per share, and our free operating cash flow. This is how we speak the right language, and we have a seat at the table to make sure that every investment we make aligns to the enterprise, and it's really focused on driving those customer outcomes. So here's the after picture, right? We said that before. How does it all come together? Well, now we have focus metrics and KPIs. You remember how many processes we had? We have 12 customer-focused KPIs, 48 aligned operational measures. There's always still more measures, but they're linked specifically to the outcomes. We have process with a purpose, so 21 defined elements or work to be done flows that I laid out and showed you there, and they had prioritized development. Controlled variation, which means we allow regional differences but not complete and total chaos, and we minimize the duplication. That allows us to have a seat at the table. And our culture has really been switching more to seeing the value of that fire prevention versus frantic activity. It's very easy for everybody to be busy, but to know that you're working on a system, how it connects to the outcomes, and how you measure your success and your impact on that really helped us not only with our employee engagement, but also with this activity. And then the last piece is sort of the proof is in the pudding. So there's a lot of challenging environments, and you can see probably looking and judging even at our own company performance. This is a long time journey. But what hasn't changed in our journey is we have the same CMO, we have the same commitment to executing our journey and moving along the path so that we can continue to add more value and drive business results. And our budgets now are stabilized. We're focused on demand generation, and the investments go towards the technology and the process improvements to make sure that demand generation is the outcome. But while I said we're not there yet, this is still a work in progress. It is a multi-year thing for us. Maybe some can do it faster, but we're really making sure we do it right, and we're on our way to becoming those value creators. And just a little fun with this, we also like to have fun. So my role and my CMO's role is really to be, the find, attract, win, retain guy. And you have to be the champion you want to see. So we took this to another level, and we have a little fun with our employees, and even how they pronounce FAR and things like that. But that's an important part of it because it is people, process, and technology. And having a little persona internally is a way to champion some of these as well. So that's a bit of our journey. All right, we'll pack
thank
back
you,
to you,
Jay, and thanks for sharing that story. And it's been a pleasure working with KENNAMETAL, and we started this process when we began with the idea of how do we get that alignment. We began with the alignment and the accountability initiatives. So that's where we started. For those of you who are wondering, what was the first initial step? That first initial step was alignment, and we have a methodology for doing that, and then that allowed us to get clarity around the right metrics and the relationship the metrics needed to have, and how that flowed from activities to results, and how did we make sure that the marketing initiatives had direct line of sight to business outcomes. Marketing ops is way more than automation. I just want to spend a little time here because this is Jay's role, and it is an important role, and as you can see again, that where the value creators excel compared to their colleagues is really around the data management and the planning, and that's why I wanted to bring both of those up. So they started with, the alignment, which is around the planning, and then around the data and analytics and measurement. So what do? If you think you're a value creator, continue to pursue data quality issues, because that's still a challenge for many of the value creators that we speak with today. Evangelize those business insights. Really, again, continue to build on that perception of business acumen. Expand the role of data. Make sure that it's moving beyond just the walls of marketing and sales. Build and protect marketing strategic orientation. And keep the focus on the customer, because to Jay's point earlier and to the work that we do and to what we're seeing around the value creators, this is what really allows the value creators to shine, is their focus on the customer. So I think that's a key differentiator. Everybody else, really getting that understanding around those business outcomes and business objectives. How are we going to put in place a way to build out the right kind of linkages between operational output, outcome, and predictive measures? How do we manage our data collection, our storage, our maintenance, and analysis so that we can really turn data into meaningful, actionable insights and make it relevant to members of the leadership team. How do we create a dashboard, and how do we use it as a management tool? That's a key part. So once you go through the process of getting the alignment and accountability, getting to the right dashboard is a fairly reasonable and practical and painless step. Serve as an internal clearinghouse for those customer insights. Again, keeping your focus on the customer. And then ensure that all the members of your marketing team are developing business acumen. It's a skill that can be developed. It just needs to be able to invest in it. And lastly, build and nurture that data-driven culture. So those are some of the key actions that you can take. Is it worth this work? Because I want to be candid. It's not easy. It's not going to be something you can do. Turn on a light switch and poof, that's all running smoothly. But it is worth it if your credibility means anything to you. Because what you can see here is the difference in the perception of credibility between the value creators and the campaign producers, and even the sales enablers. Even though those sales enablers are using waterfall and MQL and SQL and all that language, still aren't as credible as the value creators who may or may not even be using that particular kind of language. And when you have credibility, you have influence. And I think that's one of the key things that Jay is bringing up in this conversation today. So figure out where you are. Which one do you think you are? Take the survey if you're not sure. Understand what it really takes to build up a team of A players. Focus on the alignment, the accountability, the business acumen, and the operations. So really, parting thoughts. There's nothing more important than getting that alignment. It is statistically significant. Always remember, to Jay's point, balance your people, processes, and technology. Again, don't chase those shiny objects. And, back to the alignment. If you do that right, you'll avoid those random acts of marketing. Create a plan and a roadmap. You have to have some flexibility, but there really needs to be a plan, and one that really does show that direct line of sight. And to Jay's very first slide, decide to make progress. You can take the study. This is the link to get there. If many of you who are already on the newsletter probably have received notifications about the study and the link, and if you've taken it, thank you very much. We really appreciate that. So we promised to leave 10 minutes for Q&A, so we have exactly 10 minutes. And we really appreciate everyone's participation, attention. Thank you for joining us today. If you do want to stay in touch with us, there's all different kinds of ways you can do that. Eventually, we'll have a version of this deck that is for public distribution and consumption. We'll be providing that to Pat in the next day or two. And again, thank you very much. And let's open it up to Q&A.
Great. Thanks so much. You are perfectly on time. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody. So if you've got questions, comments, anything, now's the time.
All guests have been unmuted.
Anybody want to kick it off?
It would be, it's too bad we didn't have polls. It would be kind of interesting to see how many folks have marketing ops as a function, how many people are still struggling with the same kind of issues that Jay brought up. Maybe somebody could just chime in. Are you having the same experience that, Jay described? Are you trying to accomplish some of those things that we put up on the first slide? Those would be interesting things to maybe talk about as a group.
Hi, this is Chris Dordell from Wells Fargo.
Hi, Chris.
I would say we're struggling with finding those measurable activities that we can really tie to revenue. I mean, we do measure activity, but getting to the final step of how that really impacts the business, we're struggling with that.
So, Chris, that's not uncommon. And that's, I think, one of the key starting points for any organization is to kind of begin that conversation internally. And that's why we focus so much on the alignment and building out plans that allow you to see that connection. So most of the people, we just finished the primary planning season with so many of our customers. And oftentimes when we get plans, and we see hundreds of them a year, they come in PowerPoint or maybe Excel. sometimes in hefty Word documents, but mostly PowerPoint, anywhere from a few slides to a couple hundred slides. Maybe you use PowerPoint. And the challenge is that that doesn't really enable an organization to show, a marketing organization, to show that relationship, that direct line of sight between the activities that are listed in the PowerPoint and the hopefully business outcomes, if they're even known in the PowerPoint. And so just changing that process signals to the leadership team that you are moving in a different direction to ensure alignment. And when you do that, it will become much easier to build out the chains of data and the chains of measures. And so I want to encourage you all. We have this methodology and some of these processes on our website. Some of them you can just read about, or you can listen, watch videos. And if you want to chat with us about it or with Jay about it, we're happy to have that conversation. But you really do need to change the way you begin the planning process. It will help trigger what you're trying to accomplish. I hope that was helpful, Chris.
Yeah, thanks.
Anybody else in the same kind of boat or in a different boat?
Is Erica still with us? I thought she might add some comments. So anybody else who is either struggling or in the process of implementing a marketing ops function that would like to add some perspective here?
We'll call on you if you don't come forward.
How many of you think you've already? How many of you think you're ahead of the game? Does anybody feel like you're ahead of the game? You've got this nailed? Because if you do, we'd love to hear that story too. Anybody? Okay. Well,
we have a very quiet group today.
You have a quiet group, but if you guys feel shy about airing dirty laundry or anything like that, feel free to ping either Jay or me. Jay will do his best to obviously respond because he does have a full-time set of responsibilities. I can probably respond quicker if you're up for talking to someone in my capacity. I'm happy to be available, and I do know some of you, so feel free to reach out.
Well, one of the other things I would add as well is
go ahead.
The one thing I was going to add as well is that there's a lot of interesting things that you can learn across industries. So we've shared our journey and actually learned a lot from a couple of B2C industries as well. And it's something to think about if you have questions or anything like that after that I've started to really build quite a network, including folks from presentations like this with Laura, but also directly from an industry standpoint. Marketing operations and what we're trying to accomplish and build up as a practice is a very big interest for me. So feel free to reach out. It's definitely not an issue, and I'll, as Laura said, I'll make sure that I get back as quickly as possible.
And we will certainly continue this discussion in our leaders meetings because this is so important. The whole concept of measuring marketing's performance is high on everybody's priority list. So this is something that will continue to be a priority for us as well. So please drop a note to Alex and myself and let us know how you enjoyed the webinar and whether how you would like to follow up on this because, as I said, this is a continuing discussion. And please feel free to reach out to Laura and to Jay directly. And again, we appreciate everybody's time. I'll give the floor to anybody who's out there one more time, and then we'll close it up here. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay, we might be muted by everybody, but anyway, again, Jay and Laura, thank you so much. This was very insightful. We appreciate it, and we'll stay in touch. And again, thank you to all of our CFG members for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you in person when we meet again in May in New York. All of our announcements for that meeting are coming out now, so please mark your calendars for May 3rd and 4th for our general roundtables. And our leaders meeting will be on May 2nd in the afternoon, but we'll get you more details about that later. So again, thank you everybody, and have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.